Hi, I'm Tamara, and this is TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Hi, everyone. Today I'm speaking with Farah Mohammed, who is a social profit entrepreneur, the former CEO of the Malala Fund, and the founder of Girls 20, which is an organization dedicated to cultivating a new generation of leaders through education, entrepreneurship, and global experiences. Farah, thank you so much for being here. It's so great to talk to you.
Thanks very much for inviting me. I've been listening to your podcast. I've been inspired by the conversations that you've been having. So I'm honored to be among them.
Well, we're happy to have you. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation, March always brings, talk about International Women's Day. And I feel like we've been talking more about women since this pandemic started because it's really affected women worldwide, especially in the workforce. Can you explain like some of the things you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, so locally, you're seeing young women in particular, I think, struggling in terms of keeping their jobs that they were so excited to get, right out of university. And so there's that element. There's women who are been in the workforce for quite some time, and they're having to either leave their jobs. It's increasingly harder to do your job when you're at home. You're caring for kids. You might be caring for parents. There aren't as many support systems around, and often women are the first ones to lose their jobs. Then you combine that with some of the things that are going on internationally. So when supply chains grow, the businesses aren't producing as much. People are not out there. That affects women in Sudan. It affects women all over the world who are actually making some of those products. So we're seeing it locally. We're seeing it nationally. We're seeing it internationally. The numbers don't look great. If we don't make some serious changes to our structures, the gains that we've made over the last 10 years, and there have been incredible gains. You've seen more women in the boardrooms. You've seen more women in leadership positions. You've seen more women put their hands up. Like even the psyche has changed. We almost had a perfect storm where corporations were talking about women, leaders. I remember sitting around the table with the G7 leaders, and we had it was our Prime Minister Trudeau leading, but we had Macron, we had Abe, we had Christine Lagarde, we had Merkel. We were all sitting there, and we were all for one full 45-minute session around a table, and all we were talking about was the advancement of women and the impact that they have on the economy. And so I feel like COVID has done a lot of damage to the hopes, the dreams of women. Having said that, I'm an optimist. I do think that people want to see us get back on track. I think there are a lot of people who are working toward that. And so, we did this block. We've seen some stumbles. We've seen some other things come out, which are young women who are more entrepreneurial now. They're coming up with their own business streams. They're using, virtual stuff to help lift their brands. Look at yourself. You've built out this entirely amazing podcast. More people know about the issues that you feel are important, and you're doing it in a way that actually touches people. So I think there's some really, bad stuff that's going on that we should all worry about, but there's some great stuff that's starting, I think, to emerge as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's interesting because we get stuck in our own little world, right? Where, maybe the home stuff is hard too, Farah. That's what women carry also. I think that
100%.
A lot of people don't understand, that aren't women,
Yeah.
don't understand is like whether you have children or not, your home life it's just different.
Well, I am a woman, so I can't say what it feels like to be a man. But I'll tell
True.
you, as a single woman, I also feel like I worry about my expenses. I worry about my family. I worry about my friends. I really worry about what it looks like for younger women, because that's been what I've worked on most of my life is younger women and women in the. But I think about things like social isolation and what that means for women to stay connected. We all know that networks matter. Right? These are game changers. And when you've got the opportunity to go out and you're able to relieve yourself from your everyday burdens, you go out, you have a drink, you go to an event, whatever the case may be, that social connection really does impact women, and it impacts their opportunities, whether they be employment opportunities, social opportunities, whatever the case may be. The majority of my friends, when I think about them, they're social beings. And so this has been really tough on people who are at home all the time. And I don't think that matters if you're single, if you're married, if you're employed, if you're unemployed. I think that's the universal impact of people sort of saying, I need a break. And the person that you usually take a break with is in your space all the time. So it's
Yes.
very, very hard. And I'm just running through as we're having this conversation. I'm thinking about a lot of my friends who are used to traveling also, right? So you're not traveling anymore. So you are in your space all the time, every
Yeah.
day. And
Yeah.
again, I imagine there are some men out there who are struggling with the same thing, but I do think the burden does seem to fall a lot greater on women.
When you're working with young women and girls, how is it different between, say, 5 years ago and now? Is there a difference how the conversations?
It's a great conversation to have, and I think we would have had two very conversations if COVID had not hit us. So let me sort of parse this out. Without a COVID world, I feel like girls have more confidence in themselves. They're seeing more examples of women in places. So if you can see it, you can be it mentality is really set in. We've got a whole bunch of different influences coming at these girls, whether it's special programs or schools, what they see on TV, social media. So I feel like girls were sort of starting to, put their hand up more and see their superpowers at a very, very young age. And I think part of that is girls had a taste of what it looks like and they don't want to let go of it. It's up to us to encourage them to build systems, to build programs, to keep them engaged, all that kind of stuff. But I think girls at that younger age, they're optimistic. They're worried. Sometimes they're scared. The word pandemic never would have ever likely entered their vocabulary if not for COVID. So I think there's that side of it. I think that if you flip to the young women that I usually work with, which are 18 to 25, I am amazed by them. Now, that's not to say that some of them don't have days that are like down and out, but I can talk to you a little bit about Girls 20, where in
Yeah.
Girls 20, we created this platform. We basically stocked the G20. And we said, look, if you're serious about economic development, you've got to look at female labor force participation. Where does that start? It starts from a younger age, where girls want to be whatever it is that they want to be, and you've got to create the path. The path, though, needs to have jobs. You need to have pay equity. You need to have women in the boardroom, et cetera. So we built Girls 20. We stole the idea of the G20. So one girl from each G20 country comes together. She is invested in. So Bain, for example, did all the strategic thinking. Edelman did media training. We had all these companies come together and invest in these young women. The young women would come together once a year in the country that was hosting the G20. So you can imagine we've been to 10 countries. Last year it was virtual. It was supposed to be in Saudi, which would have been a statement unto itself. Anyway, these girls are there. They're there together for about 7 to 10 days. They get training, incredible training that you and I would never have had at that age. They build this network. They put together a communique. They meet with the Sherpa or the ambassadors. So we would really luck out from all of the different ambassadors. We'd be my first phone call. I go into a country, my first phone call is the Canadian ambassador to that country. How do I navigate this place? What's the protocol? Who do we need to meet? And we sort of created this atmosphere where these girls could be themselves and learn from one another. And what we didn't by design create, but happened by default, was we created this alumni of these 20 plus girls every year who now help each other find jobs, do school stuff together. When they travel, they meet up. I'm proud of what Girls 20 has done in terms of creating this incredible alumni. And the other thing I'd say we're doing, which not a lot of people know about, and I hope that the TELUS Foundation considers this, but we recruit, train with an actual onboarding program with the Chang School. We give them a mentor, and then they're placed on a community board somewhere in this country so they can build their board in a not-for-profit, social profit, charitable board environment. They get a mentor. They sit there for at least 1 year. They make impact on local decisions, and it's called Girls on Boards. And so it's a way to, again, engage girls on the issues that they care about, and create a positive for the community they're going to go in and help. And it helps girls understand, right? Sitting at the table.
Yeah.
Really
and so so Girls 20 is like 18 to 24 is kind of your
That's
spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is so interesting. So, what do we do for our girls who are under 18?
I would say there are a couple things that I would encourage. So there are some really amazing programs in this country that are inexpensive and very accessible for girls at whatever socioeconomic level. And we have to keep that in mind, right? Because we can't just think about the girls who have parents who are able to afford them to put them into stuff. So Girls Inc., for one, is a national program. It exists for younger girls and it really teaches them about their values, about what they're interested in. It starts them at a very, very, very young age. So there's an example of one, right? There's Girl Guides, there's a whole bunch of them. So I would say enroll them in something where they're building that sense of themselves, but they're building that sense of being part of something, right? It's a safe space. So that's number one. Number two, there are incredible books out there now that are inspiring for girls, and they're very readable. They're incredibly readable. What She Said is one that I recently was sent to me, right? It's got these pictures of women and great quotes. And so it's aspirational stuff. I think it's really, really important where we can. And I know that, not a lot of young people are sitting around watching TV, but I think they should be exposed to women who are doing extraordinary things that they can relate to. Obviously, I would say Malala because of her battle and what she's done with it. Greta, but there are so many other unnamed, not huge platform young girls that we should be shining a light on, And then at the other hand, they should be seeing women like Lisa Laflamme. Look at what she's doing. Farah Nasser, she's another one. So there are local examples and there are international examples, but I think it's up to us, parents, the school for sure, community groups, to keep reminding girls of the examples that are out there. The science shows that when they see different women, different models doing different things, they think, I can do that as well.
100%. And it's, I was thinking about it yesterday when I was thinking about our conversation. My kids, our family doctor is a woman.
Yeah.
So they don't know, that's who delivered them and that's who is still their doctor. And they don't know any different, right? Whereas when I was a kid, I don't think I ever saw a female physician ever until I, was in my 30s.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I'm really tired of the firsts, right? I want to live in a world where there are no firsts. So the first VP, Vice President of the United States of America is Kamala Harris. That's the first. Fine, that's done. Let's get through all the firsts because it's us that worry about the firsts. For girls, it's natural to them. And by the way, for younger boys, they don't see the gender stuff the way that we see the gender stuff.
Exactly.
They actually don't even think about it until they get older.
They don't think about it. Yes.
And so it's so important at that young age, as you point out, that we remove that barrier from the get-go. Right?
Yeah, it's really fascinating when I think about when we were young and what we saw compared to what kids today are seeing. It's a non-conversation.
It's stereotypes, though, right? It's also
100%.
Like, we didn't grow up with the Supreme Court justice being a woman. That came later for us. These young women and boys are like, the Supreme Court justice was a woman. Yeah, well, that's normal. So I think more and more, the finance minister.
Yeah.
You look around the world now and see how many female presidents there are and prime ministers there are and how great they're doing. Yeah. Angela Merkel, right?
I know.
We don't talk about her very much. Now I'm completely freezing, but if you think about some of the women running the big organizations, Christine Lagarde, it's crazy stuff, right? And it's not crazy. It should be as it is. Look closer to home and see all the women who are now running corporations. You had Deborah Flint on your program. Think about the responsibility that woman has during COVID and an airport, right?
Yeah, and we do. You're right. We do have fantastic examples. You know what, Farah? Before we move on from Girls 20, I do want to say that at TELUS during this pandemic, we're looking for ways to give back, and one of the ways. You probably know this is we ask our guests to choose, a place that is meaningful to them. Yours is Girls 20, so this is perfect. And we will be giving Girls 20 $500 I would say on your behalf, but it's your organization. So we are happy to give $500
Well,
to
listen,
Girls
thank
20.
you.
So
I want to say thank you for two things. One, it means a lot that TELUS does that. Otherwise, I mean, you're leading by example, and it's so incredibly important for corporations to do that. And to every dollar counts. It's been incredibly hard for organizations during COVID. So that $500, you can't imagine what Heather Barnaby and her team at Girls 20 are going to do with that $500. So thank you so
oh.
very much for doing that. It's very much
Well,
appreciated.
it's our pleasure, really, truly. And I find this all fascinating because, I am a woman and I have two girls, and I'm constantly worried about, how girls today are being raised, because it's very different than when I was, a kid, and when you were a kid, and you and I have very different backgrounds. And so, you know, the world is changing, but how do we build a better future for our female leaders? How do we make it so that, like you say, that it's just natural? There are no more firsts.
Well, first, there are a couple of things. I don't know what family you grew up in, and so I won't make judgment calls on other people's families, but I really do think it starts at home. That's the stuff we can't control, right? But it does need to start at home. The relationship between a mother and a father and the way that they raise their children, particularly if there's boys and girls and they're being raised differently. 3 years ago, I was looking for a toy for my niece, and I went up and I looked, on a website, and I won't name them because they did course correct, but I looked it up and I went girls, and all the stuff there, like even the label was pink, and the boys' label was blue, and I was so pissed off because I thought, really, seriously, like. After all of this, we have corporations catching up, governments catching up, but a toy store can't get it right. So that stuff actually matters. Like if I have a really good girlfriend, her kid is 3 years old. He has trucks and he has dolls, and we should have no judgment about stuff like that. So it starts in the home. Then I think if you think about what they learn in school, right? So the majority of teachers are females, I'm told, in the younger grades. I don't have any data to back it up, but that's what my friends will tell me. So what are they learning from those teachers? What are they reading in their books? Up until recently, we would have only examples of male leaders. We have to change the curriculum. So there's a responsibility for the schools. And that's not, you know what? We print books all the time. Change the curriculum so that they see that.
But for our people, we are not good with change.
Well,
and I say that when it comes to education, it's very hard to change.
It sure is.
Anything in education.
But I'm going to tell you something. We had one of our delegates from Girls 20, and one of the things they had to do is once they were going through the program, they'd have to do something in their own community. She challenged the curriculum of school and got changed.
Wow.
So it is possible, right? We can't leave it up to the one person. We have to have ministers who say, right, I care. I care about what's in that textbook. Let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at it from gender, from race, from sexual orientation. Let's take a look at it and be honest about the kind of environment we want our young kids to grow up in. Then the other thing I'll say is, there are different forms of leaders, right? And we have to model the kind of leadership that we want our young girls to be. So are we going to be inclusive leaders? Are we going to be thoughtful leaders? Are we going to be pragmatic leaders? We have choices to make, right? We have choices to make. And I think what's beautiful about COVID is that a lot of young girls and a lot of young boys are seeing their moms actually work from home, work hard from home, have responsibility, live up to that responsibility. It's not easy, but they are seeing it, right? They're seeing dad have to take care of the kids and mom's going to go do her call. So they do actually see it, but it's tough. Tomorrow, this is tough stuff, and there are no easy solutions. Really, there aren't. But we got to dig deep. If we want to see that stuff, we really got to dig deep, and we got to look at where are the sources of where the stereotypical stuff is coming from.
So I think when I'm thinking about a lot of employment, right? When we think about the work at, I just think about school, for example. You said You weren't sure if the majority of teachers were women, but that's what you hear. I feel like the majority of teachers are also women, just in my own experience, from the kids being in school. I also know that, in hospitals, in like all of these jobs, they're, long-term care facilities, all of these places, it's majority of women, not all women, but the majority of women. Yeah. They're not paid very well.
Yeah.
They're not, a lot of times they're not full-time, so they're not getting benefits or anything. They're part-time. They are, they are doing some serious labor and not respected, or paid well, or getting anything. How do we change that? Like, how do we, because I think, yes, we all want to be leaders, right? But we need to respect the hard work that's going in also.
Yeah.
I don't
No, listen,
how do we change that?
Our system is screwed up, right? We relied, and COVID proved it. So we relied on those people who were going into nursing homes, going to hospitals, working at the Shoppers Drug Mart, whatever. They were the service people who we relied on. And, now we understand, I think we fully understand, without teachers, guess what? You're your kid's teacher. And you probably put a bit more value on the role of a teacher than you did pre-COVID. I'm not talking about you specifically, but individuals. Look, I hope that one of the things that come out of COVID is that people understand those roles and they put value on those roles and we properly pay those roles.
Mm-hmm. So, do we need more women in those leadership roles in order to have that trickle down?
We sure do. We need more women in those leadership roles because we need more women in those leadership roles. We know the impact that women can have when they're in leadership roles. We know that. We know that they bring a different sense of decision-making, responsibility, empathy. They've got skills. They got mad skills. They got great education. So we need more women in those roles. But we also need men, and we have seen some men. We also need men to recognize that's just not the woman's role to do that. So that, if there's not a woman in the leader's seat, that it's not going to be done. This is a shared responsibility. And we've got to deal with it. I don't believe in, it's the woman's responsibility and not the men, and just putting more women in leadership positions will solve it, because you'll always have men in leadership positions. We're never going to have, and I don't believe in empowering a woman means disempowering a man. I really believe that this is an educational shift. It's a value shift.
Where does Canada fit, do you think, in, say, the G20 when it comes to, supporting women, female leadership? We're doing
really, really well, and I'll tell you why. So, first of all, we have made some major declarations about cabinet being 50-50. I think that was really important. We were one of the first to do that. We've got a finance minister who's female. We've got lots of deputy ministers who are female. We've kept the issue of female labor force participation high on the agenda. I think every party talks about it. It's not just about one party. Some are doing better than others. One of the things that I'd like to see is, does that run right through? So sure, it's the political, but what about corporations? What about crown corporations? What about diplomatic appointments? So can we run that right through? Because that's how you actually impact change. Right? It's not just what you do in Ottawa, it's what you're doing around the world as well. How do we set that model? I also think one of the other things that we've done is we've pushed to make sure that people understand that we don't believe in a society where, women should be part of X group of sectors. We do believe that a woman can be in any sector. We've shown that. We just need to see more of it. And again, it's not just up to government to do it, it's up to society as a whole. The theme this year of International Women's Day is challenge, right? We've got to challenge. We've got to challenge ourselves. We've got to challenge each other. We really, really do. And I don't think there's a better time to do it coming out of COVID. We have a chance to reset. We've got to take it seriously.
You're amazing. I love this conversation. And I love ending with that. That's really powerful. Seriously, that's so good.
Well,
I do have to say, I do want to ask you though, tell me a little bit about working with the Malala Fund. How was that? Of course I'm going to ask you. I'm very curious, like how, just tell me, how did that happen? And
well, I think, The first thing I'll say is I do believe that serendipity is a beautiful thing, but I also believe that you need to work hard to get where you want to get. So and that networks matter. I had a very good friend who said, Farah, you should apply for this. And, I'm embarrassed to tell you, I was like, really? You think they'll pick me? Blah, 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 blah. And she's like, just put your name in. Right. And here I am telling the world, put your hand up, So I did. I put my name in, and it was Spencer Stewart at the time that was doing the search. And I did the interview. I went through this really great round of interviews. Eventually, the last interview was meeting Malala. I had met her father in a group interview. Then it was, will you fly to London and do your final interview with Malala? There are 3 candidates left. And I'm like, will I fly to London to meet with Malala? Yeah, I think I'll do that. And so I met Malala, and it was in a group setting. And I walked in, and I really want to share this because it says a lot about this young woman. I walked in and I said, hi, I'm Farah. And she said, I'm Malala. Of course you're Malala. But it was warm and it was kind. And so we talked, we had some good laughs. It was the first time I saw that she had a sense of humor. I flew overnight. So I went back to my hotel. Fell asleep. The phone called and they said, Malala would like to meet you at her home tomorrow. Can you do it? And I was flying back for a speaking engagement. And I said, of course I can do it. And I met her, and there was such warmth and integrity and smart. So I took the job. I left Girls 20 in really capable hands. I took the job, moved to London, and for 2 years just, got to work alongside this woman who wants something so simple that every girl should go to school, and took a tragedy that most people would have gone into hiding out of and turned it into her rallying cry. So it was the privilege of my life. We did some fantastic things together. We still keep in touch. I consider her such a wise, smart, dedicated, probably till the end of her life, to make sure that every girl has a chance to go to school. And so our passions really aligned, our senses of humor aligned. And it was just a wonderful experience. And I also got to know her family really well, her brothers, her mom, and her dad. I didn't have family there, so I'd often go over there for a meal. And it says a lot about that family that it wasn't just the job. It was truly a warm engagement. And Malala now is the chair of the board of the Malala Fund. She's taking some time off and, from school. Which I think is great. And I have to say, it's just, it was a real pleasure as a refugee to this country that she chose me to lead her fund. Was one of the proudest moments of my life.
I just love hearing that story. That's amazing. And so, it gives me hope, it really does, to know that there's strong women like her and you that are out there advocating for other, young girls and young women and women in general to get where we need to go, because we all have dreams, we all have ideas, and we can do a lot.
We can,
especially together, right?
Absolutely. If we can surround ourselves with women who are like us and not like us, and we can sort of help each other through that pathway, I really think that we will stop having firsts. We will be well beyond those firsts. And that's my dream, is that we stop having that conversation.
I love it. I love your dream. It's my dream now too. Thank you so much, Farah. I love this. It's been so great to speak with you. Remember, you can follow Farah on Twitter at Farah. That's FARAHP Mohamed, MOHAMED, and find out more about Girls 20 at girls20.org. Thank you, Farah.
Thank you so very much. Take care.
Thanks for listening to another episode of TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Be sure to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for another conversation. You can also check out our website, telus.com/podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at TELUS Talks.